take that out. In the bottom right corner of the window, bottom right corner. This stream can be exit. Yeah, okay. There. So if I copy that, paste. Hey.
I'm here.
All right. I got to figure out. Okay, let me see if I can publish this at 6 p.m. on August 11th. That's tomorrow, ain't it?
Today's the 10th.
Oh, okay. So that should be live right now. So I guess see if you can get on there and access it.
Gotta get my iPad out. That's safe. I unexpectedly went and picked up a fireproof file cabinet for free.
Oh, okay.
It had to be loaded in my truck with a forklift, and then I just had two neighbors come over and get it out of my truck.
Oh, all right. I don't know why it's not showing up on mine.
So go to YouTube or you send me an email?
No, it'll be on. It should be on Patreon.
Did you send me an email link?
It should come up automatically.
Alright, let me get in.
No, it didn't. Why didn't it do it? Hold on. Oh, this thing. Scheduled. Delete. New. Live stream. YouTube. Edit. Paste. And I want to we are live.
Okay, I have your page up on Patreon.
Okay, hold on a second. And we are August 11th, 2021 live stream. Blah blah blah. I want to publish now. And should be there. And then what I have to do
Yeah, it's here. And there's like maybe a 8-second delay.
yeah, I don't know how to that's I don't know how to oh, that's annoying as shit. I'm Sorry about that, James. There's. Sorry about
We got
that,
people.
James.
We got people
there's
now.
Sorry about
We
that,
got people.
James.
We got people.
There's.
Sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and
there's.
sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and
Sorry,
sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and
Sorry, I was
sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and sorry, I was talking to
Sorry about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the
James.
phone, and
Sorry about that,
sorry, I was talking
Sorry
to
about
somebody
that,
on the phone, and
Sorry How's that? I bet it's now it should be okay. Have we got it figured out? I'm reading all my. All right, so we're good. Awesome. Good deal. Well, guys, welcome to the August live stream. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this a little bit more often. So I'm going to start off with a few questions that I get. Yeah, that's what it feels like when you go live, Adams. It does feel like you're in a time loop a lot of times. But I'm going to start with answering some questions that I've gotten a lot. And then hopefully y'all have some questions of your own that we can talk about. So anyway, one of the biggest questions that I get continually is on AGI and different schools and what my recommendation is. I've gotten a lot of questions on the DH Gunworks YouTube channel on do I still stand by AGI and all of that. And I've done a lot of research, as most of you guys know, in different online schools and all of that. And it really is, in my opinion, the best and most complete way to go. My son was enrolled in the MGS program, Modern Gun School, and he can do basic things, but when you get into the real nitty-gritty of gunsmithing, he gets real lost, and he's not a dummy. It's just they talk in very, very general terms, whereas in the AGI program, you get right down and dirty with a lot of this stuff. So that being said, that's where I stand on AGI. In fact, some things that are in the works is I actually contribute to their I'll get to that in just a minute, Chris. I do actually contribute to AGI, or am going to start to, and so hopefully my plan is to really, where AGI leaves off, I'm really hoping to start and pick up that ball and really bring it forward with a lot more detail and how to do different things and things like that. And and on GCA, I was just getting to that, Randy, as well as contribute to the GCA website. If you don't know what GCA is, that is the Gunsmithing Club of America, and it's I believe it's a subscription service. I don't know what it runs or anything like that, but it's a forum for AGI students and just people who are firearms enthusiasts that want to work on their own stuff, where if they get in a bind, they can go on there and ask questions. And I get on there and scan through answers, and most of the answers that people get in reply to their questions are pretty sound. And if they're not, then I'll throw in my 2 cents. But if you're subscribed on Patreon, what I'm hoping to do is, you guys have seen the quality of work that I do for the most part, and that's gonna go to a whole new level. That's my boy, just came in. That's gonna get taken to a whole new level with detail, I'm hoping, and that's what I'm hoping to bring to, hopefully if we can get this worked out, bring that to AGI and the Gun Club of America, and get things updated with more than, for example, with the AGI courses, when you get into pistol smithing, you're pretty much dealing with the 1911 and the Glock. On the rifles, it's pretty much strictly the Winchester Model 70 and the Remington 700. Everybody builds those. So I'm really hoping to bring that to a whole new place with different ideas, and a different presentation with a lot more details. And so that's what I'm hoping happens with it. We'll see where it goes. I also think that we're going to get into rebuilding and restoring heavy equipment like lathes and mills and things like that. And so let's see what we got for questions in the chat. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. I'm running a little bit early, but it takes me a while to get going and figure this stuff out. Between now and the last time, I have a brand new computer, so I've got software that wasn't on it that I had to get, and some of it's outdated, so it all anyway, it goes on and on and on. Same old stuff. I'm a gunsmith, not a video tech. But anyway, Christopher, on the level 1, the hardest one for me was the shotguns. Not so much because I don't understand shotguns, but the tests need to be, they've done some work on it. They've still got to do some more work on them. The tests were really they were interesting, to say the least. I know Randy and some of you all that have been through AGI can attest to the inaccuracies on some of the tests. I've been fighting tooth and nail to get that fixed. And so shotguns was the hardest for me, but it taught me a lot about the way their program runs. If you can understand that, I learned a lot about how to pay attention to how Bob's holding things, because he'll say, at the top, and to me top is top, but when Bob's looking at something, top is the top of whatever he's looking at. So it lacks a little bit of clarity and detail and vocabulary there, which makes it confusing when you go to the test. But that was the toughest one for me. I think I squeaked out a 99 on that, and the rest of it was pretty easy. And I think I went through that whole course with a 99 average or something like that. And mostly because there's some questions in those tests that I think the answer, to be honest, I'm not trying to be arrogant or ignorant or whatever, but there was some safety questions in certain areas where really from a safety standpoint, my answers were better than their correct answers. and so I don't worry about that stuff. But anyway, yeah, shotguns was the toughest for me. The easiest was probably rifles, ARs, Glocks, and the machine shop. So I've done that quite a while. I did AGI master course years ago. How much different it would be without Bob? I think it would be a lot different, and I think the funny thing with Bob is, I think his method of teaching translates to a classroom very well. As far as the online video, I think it could be brought into the modern era and make it a little bit more clear. Bob's sense of humor doesn't come out, and one thing that Bob is he was a bit of a trickster, you know, and he would, if you was in his class, he would intentionally misspeak to see if you'd catch it, or if you had to present whatever you're working on to him, he would, if you weren't, he would try to distract you and kind of sabotage it when you weren't looking, to be able to see if you would pick up on it, and he thrived on that. He had a very interesting sense of humor. To be honest, if it wasn't for Bob, though, you would be just like every other gunsmith school out there, studying platforms rather than designs. And what I mean by that is, the one thing that Bob really focused on was, when you get out there in the real world and we start looking at different platforms, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, Jeff. When the thing that Bob really focused on is he taught you to see similarities. And that's why they really focused on certain platforms, because if you can understand, like the 1911, for example, a Glock, a SIG, a Smith & Wesson 2.0, or the Smith & Wesson out there, and they can't have the 2.0s out in California, or those things. You know what the main function of the main parts do, and everything else in between you can kind of figure out based off those. So Bob taught design and function rather than platforms, which I think is invaluable. And to be honest, there's still a lot of gunsmithing schools, brick and mortar and online, that are still trying to catch up to that. Bob could convey that really well, especially in person. So yeah, I think it would be a lot different. I don't think AGI or its students would enjoy the successes that they do without the way Bob presented the information. Great to see you back. I really missed your videos. Well, Craig, I never really left. I've been doing a lot on Patreon. I'm still going to do some things on DA on the YouTube channel. And I've started another YouTube channel. Unfortunately, it's hard to search for because it's brand new, and so you can't just type in blah 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 and it comes up. But like right now, we're on that. It's called The Shop, and that's really what it's about, is just my life, you know, big things that I'm working on in the shop. For example, right now, those on Patreon know that I'm restoring a 1942 Sheldon 11x36 lathe that was actually used in World War II on the battlefield in Europe to repair tanks. It's a cool old lathe, and you don't see that stuff around very much anymore. You can't buy parts for them, and so I'm going through that whole process to make and I know we're going to cover a lot of machine stuff in there, from making gears to all kinds of stuff. But the idea with that channel is to branch out beyond gunsmithing. It's, I'm going to get into just different welding projects, fabrication projects, just different shop stuff, so that if you're experiencing downtime in your shop, how you can generate income. We're gonna get into tool making and things like that eventually, really probably pretty quick. So I'll put, if y'all want, I'll put a link to that channel in the description below, and then as far as the DH Gunworks YouTube channel, what I have to do is I have to go through and edit all the videos that I've put on Patreon and make them so that they comply with YouTube standards. So that's where we're at on that. I appreciate, I've missed doing the live all the way around. It's a lot of fun for me to answer questions and things and tell you what's going on. And I do have a big update at the end of this, something that is going to be a lot of fun. I know a few of you know about it. William Woodring, welcome back. Thanks, William. Merton, great to see you, Dave. Thanks, Merton. Billy, welcome back. Ultima Shield 88, looks like you moved into a much bigger shop. No, I didn't. It looks big. It is going to get bigger because of some of the things that I want to bring to the new channel. Is so the main shop where I'm sitting right now is 16 by 16. The area with the lathes right now is 12 by 16. I'm in the process of expanding that area to a 20 by 20, and then when that's done, I'm going to add on another 20 by 20 addition to that, where I can have a bay door just to get big stuff in and out. I've got, when you start getting into refurbing this, I've got a whole shop full of lathes. It's not like I make a career out of doing that, but you do one and word travels, and next thing you know, you get a whole shop from. And actually, one of them I bought, and that's a really cool lathe. You all get to see a lot of that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So, yeah, it's not really bigger per se, but it looks bigger because of the way I've got it laid out. There's a lot of stuff in this little area. I'll tell you that. Jeff, is SDI better to go? Is SDI better to go ATI again? I have class stuff for 2 years and a degree in science. Yeah, firearm science. So here's the thing with that. I think it. Oh, thanks, Lil Willie. I appreciate that. There's all kinds of stuff, good stuff coming to the Patreon. Which, if any of you haven't checked that out, I am on Patreon. You can just type in, go to Patreon, DH Gunworks, and poop, there I am. And I'll put a link to that in the description below eventually. So if I understand your question, it depends on my thought process on SDI and the whole 2-year associate's degree thing. It really, I think for online school, it's really overrated. And why I say that, like if you go to a brick and mortar school, you actually come out of there with your diploma, associate's degree in gunsmithing and machine technology and all those things, where really SDI, they're the only school out there that has a firearm science. Nobody else recognizes that. But I'm not going to stand here and delegitimize SDI. I think if you are really hung on a 2-year education, that's great. I have an associate's degree in applied science, which covers hydraulics, pneumatics, electronics, electrical, and machine shop theory. I have my master's in mechanical engineering. So really, at the end of the day, a 2-year degree in firearms science I wasn't willing to spend that kind of money. Not for something that I know I could have got done in a couple months. In fact, I did the whole AGI deal and what was it, Randy? I think 2 months or something like that. Didn't take me very long to get through AGI. And that's the thing. AGI is really a work at your own pace. You can take 2 years if you want to, or you can really buckle down and attack it like I did, like Randy did, and like a couple others have done, and pound it out in a couple months, and you're done with it, you know. And it's not easy. It's not a certificate factory. You're gonna earn it, even if it. Yeah, Randy was 10 to 12 weeks, and I'll tell you, he attacked it with authority. So I don't know that one is better than the other. I think SDI has made great strides in the right direction, as in adding machine shop or machining techniques as well as welding. But the gunsmithing program, as far as I know, is their head gunsmith. Their head gunsmith is still Kip Carpenter, who failed out of AGI, and that's just a sad fact. He couldn't. He barely got through level 1, and it's, you know, with all the problems with the testing process at AGI, I managed to get through that, the whole thing, all of it, with a very high average. So I know it can be done. It's just you got to really buckle down and pay attention, and exhaust some resources, and use that lump 3 feet above your backside. But yeah, it's, you know, and it is. SDI is literally 2.5 times more expensive than AGI. The thing with that is I guess if you need tuition assistance and things like that, and that's usually how I break it down, is if you can't go to brick and mortar and get hands-on experience and you need tuition assistance, AGI or MGS is a good way to go, because they both have that. SDI has, you know, you can use your GI Bill if you're a veteran and things like that. MGS has a payment plan. Their whole course is less than $5,000 if you're doing the master course, I guess, or advanced, or however they word it. Casey, Chris is doing good. I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. He got to a point with that where he understood a lot more than he did when he got in. Long story short, he quit the MGS program, and he's now studying the AGI because he's kind of figured out the big gaps of what modern has. I mean, there's a reason that they're the price they are. There's some good elements that I think are really good with MGS. And I'll talk about that in a minute, James. There's some good aspects to MGS, like, you know, you're going to get tested on how to use a file. You're going to get tested on how to checker a stock and finish a stock and things like that. And those projects are built in into the price. But when you I don't know what that means. But when you get into like the machine shop and all of those things, really truly custom stuff, it's tough. You're gonna have to go outside and get you're going to basically have to find a way to get educated on those things, because reading in a book on how to chamber and do those things is a very different animal than actually being able to see it being done, knowing where your pitfalls are, which is still a very different thing than actually having to do the work. They all have their faults and they all have their place. I just think for the level of detail, as far as real world gunsmithing, I think MGS is pretty basic. AGI is pretty darn advanced, and I know a lot of MGS students that go on and pick up the AGI programs, which you can now. I fought long and hard so that if you go through SDI, before SDI offered machine shop theory or any of those things, I worked very hard on AGI to open the doors up to where you could supplement that education with their programs. So if you're an MGS and you get to where you're needing to cut RMRs and you need to learn how to run a mill and run a lathe and do all that, you can get their machine shop course and go through it. You didn't used to be able to do that. Yeah, hands-on is great. James, continuing on with that. As far as watching videos on a DVD, that's a very narrow scope. And I'll tell you why. Because the book, and because I have the MGS, I have their program. I've got the whole thing, and I've been through it. And they're no different than the Shooter's Bible Guide to Firearms Assembly, Disassembly. It'll tell you how to tear it apart, and then it'll say to reassemble, reverse the order, some foolishness like that. And you don't get to see all the pitfalls. You don't get to see all the hidden things that show up in a video. And if you're interested in that, you check out some of what I do on Patreon, and you'll see some detail. And one thing I pride myself in, which those of you who are on Patreon, I'm going to ask you to step up right now. I think I am working on customizing the 1911, and we've gone through some pretty interesting trouble guns, and the level of detail I think on that, there shouldn't be anybody that has watched those videos that can't sit down and do exactly what I've done, just because of the level of detail hopefully expressed in those videos. So speak up now, Patreon folks. That's the benefit of video rather than strictly book work. And I know MGS do have some videos online, but they need to do. Here's the long and the short of it. I like the hands-on aspect that MGS has. I think that would be very easy for AGI to do for not a lot of money, and I'm working on them doing that. Yes, I know, I get that a lot, Lil Willie. But anyway, I'm working on AGI to get some things out there that they'll send you some things that you'll have to demonstrate how to file. That is, or stone something. That is one of the biggest things that I see all the time. The stuff that comes in is because people don't know how to run a file square or stone something properly, and these aren't just no particular school. These are people that have done it for a long, long time, that have come out of all kinds of different brick and mortar schools, and those are very important. I think the basics. If you have a good foundation, everything else is pretty easy. If you can go through the process of running a file smooth and flat and true, milling is going to be a lot easier, believe it or not, because you understand the process. Even though it's a machine, you'll understand how important it is. So yeah, and I think MGS could greatly could greatly improve their program by adapting a lot of AGI's video content so you can actually see what's going on. The human brain is an amazing thing when it comes to that. Our brains have the ability to look at something and associate a feel or an emotion or whatever it is to it. You can't do that by reading alone. It's a sight, it's a visual way of learning. Yes, and that's I hear that all the time, James. That's everybody's goal, is to be a real gunsmith and not just a part swapper. And there's some days you're a little bit of both. It really is. There's days where you'll go out and you'll get new parts. I think Randy, Uncle Randy, can speak to this because I know he's been through it. You go out and order parts, and the new parts don't work, or it starts a landslide of these parts are brought back to 100%. Now none of this other stuff is working right. And so gunsmithing is, to me, in a nutshell, is task at hand, fixing what you have in front of you in a good, safe, reliable way. And there's been things I've had in the shop where Randy and I talk a lot. That's why I talk about him quite a bit. But he had sent me a shotgun quite a while back because parts aren't available for it. I have a full machine shop, and so I can basically blueprint the part, and I did. And we had some issues with it, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, Craig. But anyway, and I did make the part, and it was to the specs that I had right in front of me. Shipped it all back to him, and the darn thing didn't work. And what had happened is there's parts that are worn. So luckily, I do a lot on Fusion 360. So when I do make parts, I run that through Fusion 360, which is a 3D modeling drawing program, if you're not familiar with that. And so I was able to pull that drawing up, and as Randy and I talked, I said, we need to make that nose on that part probably a little bit longer and change a little bit dimensions, and sent it back to him, and I got a video of that the other day, and it came out pretty good. That's gunsmithing. Sometimes new parts work, and sometimes they don't. As far as the Patreon, what that costs is I have two levels on that. It's a donation basis, or however you want to call it, subscription service, whatever. But what it is you just go to www.patreon.com, or you can type in DH Gunworks Patreon, and it'll come up. And I have two different tiers, and to be honest, I'm probably getting rid of the one. I have a $1 tier, and I have a $10 tier, and it's a monthly thing. And yes, you can donate as much as you want. I've had guys that get on there for a month, say I love what you're doing, and they make a one-time donation of $100, just to help the cause. That was originally intended as a way to keep doing YouTube videos, and yeah, I'd forgotten about that, Randy. The soda can shotgun fix. That's gunsmithing. I mean, that's some real gunsmith engineering right there. Boy, that was a while ago. But and now I do a lot of really detailed stuff on Patreon only, because YouTube has pretty much outlawed anything that I love to do, and I have mixed emotions on that. I don't want to be I never wanted to get into YouTube and just be a video podcast. But if you're in the firearms business, that's kind of what it turns into. I can kind of do videos that will highlight, what I'm doing, and I can probably show a little bit, but then all the detail stuff, assembly, disassembly, and all those things, I keep on Patreon. So anyway, there's two levels. I have a $1 level, a $10 a month level, and the $10 a month level grants you access to everything that I've been done on there, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming down the pike. I'll kind of pull that up and I'll tell you. I can't remember everything I've got on there, but I'm working on a whole series. There's a three-part series on a 1911 that was sent in for custom work, and it got severely botched, and so we're bringing that back. I've got a series on there on restoring lathe that I've got in the shop. I've got videos on follow down, pin and weld. I did a whole video on pin and weld on Patreon. That is a money-making son of a gun if you're into gunsmithing. When somebody comes in with how to make a short barrel rifle legal, you have to do a pin and weld, and I go right through the whole process of how I do it and how you can train if you're not very good at it, how you can practice to become good at it. It's all in that video. And then I've got a whole thing on a 3-part series on making parts from scratch on the part that I was just talking about for that shotgun. I think that was a pretty good video. I was pretty proud of that. I've got the complete version of that. Wow, the 6mm. I think that was the last real gunsmithing video I did on YouTube, and that was because it was one of our viewers on YouTube. Their mom sent that in, and I thought that was only fair to do that. But there's a whole section on there on a Glock that came in the shop where somebody had really butchered the safety on that and what I did to, and that's a really good video. If you like Glocks, that's worth it. And there's going to be a lot more coming. It doesn't end, so it's worth a check. It is. I know what it cost me to go and learn these things. It's trial and error, and I tell people all the time, half a gunsmith is you're gonna screw things up. That's how you learn. You learn by making mistakes. Just don't screw up a customer's firearm, and you'll be fine. And what I try to do is share my experience with things that I've learned over the many years to help you avoid making those mistakes, the mistakes that I made. There's going to be a whole one thing that I'm going to do on the new YouTube channel as well as Patreon is going to be a long, hard look at the lathe. We're going to go, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I've got a couple different lathes in the shop now that will really highlight my points. But we're going to go through, if you don't know anything about a lathe, that video is going to take you through the process of how to look at a lathe, how to buy a lathe, how to restore a lathe if you have to, or recondition it, how to set it up, which will include how to level. I mean, everybody thinks level is level, which works great unless you like on my big lathe that has a flood coolant system, if I level it, it won't drain fluid. I'll run the pump dry and it won't work. So how to actually level the lathe that you have and get it trued up, we're going to go right through that into how to run it, and that will be on the lookout for that. That series is going to be how to speak lathe, and it's going to be really, really good. We're going to make some stuff. We're going to get into a lot of different things, just because you learn a lot about machining over the years, and let's face it, there's not a lot of machine schools out there anymore to where you can go and learn, or they're fading fast, and once that's gone, so anyway, Raphael, how long have I been in gunsmithing? So short story, the first rifle that I ever built, I was 9.5, 10 years old on the camera. I was 9.5, 10 years old, and I may do a video on that because it's pretty interesting. So I have one grandpa, we called him Grandpa, and it was my dad's dad, and he was a farmer and a big hunter and all of those things. And then my papa, my mom's dad, was a tool and die guy, retired. And it amazes me now how much both, including even my dad, how much all of them really influenced my life. So, short story. My grandpa was a big hunter, and in 1964 the Remington 700 came out. In 1965 he started buying them, and my dad had three brothers, or he had two brothers, so my grandpa had three kids: my dad, my Uncle Sam, my Uncle Al. And when they became of age, each one of them got a Remington 700. And my dad's youngest brother passed very early in life, and he was I hate to say it, but he was my favorite uncle, and I miss him. And so anyway, when I was 9 years old, I got his 1965, 1966, I could check the date on it, Remington 700 in 308. And my papa was over one day when I was out shooting that, and asked me if I would really like to make that a lot better. And me being the fella I am was like, yeah. And so at 10 and a half years old, my papa took me to his shop, and he told me how to do it, and he demonstrated it, but I actually did the work. Accurized my Remington 700. We ordered a heavy, it kind of made my grandpa mad, being the quintessential hunter. We ordered a heavy barrel, cut the chamber short, tightened up the headspace, crowned it, and man, I still have it. That thing shoots like a top. I haven't messed with it in many years. So I've been doing this for a very long time, just not professionally, not for money. I've done it for years and years just because I truly love to fix things. And that's a big thing, Craig, going to your point. I mean, I did all of that stuff for nothing, just because, one, I love it. I love how the old timers thought. And you learn a lot when you go that route. You'll for sure learn what not to do sometimes. So yeah, 10 years old, built my first rifle. I'll do a whole kind of video on that just because it's kind of nice. And it's neat to think back of where I am now and what I'm doing now, and where it's like my whole life is really kind of culminated into what I'm doing now, which is really kind of interesting, and really how my grandpas, both of them, and my dad had big influences on me to be able to be successful. So I'm getting, I'm in my mid 50s, so from 40 years, I've been dink-donking around with firearms. As a professional gunsmith, actually put my shingle out on the door and am doing this. I've been, how long has it been now, Randy? 2.5 years, and it's been a wonderful experience. I wished I think everything happens for a reason, and I think things happen in the way that they're supposed to happen. But I sure kind of wish that this had happened earlier in my life, but maybe I wasn't ready for that back then. Anyway, that's a whole philosophical debate. I read that comment a long time ago, Raphael. I'll get to that. I really appreciate your honesty. Sharing all this is priceless. I was thinking about an apprenticeship. Yeah, apprenticeships are hard to come by, and I'll tell you why. There's so much BS out there when it comes to gunsmithing. It's really heartbreaking, especially for, and that's one reason I do as much as I can video wise, because there is so much BS. People just don't want the competition. It's a very it can be a very cutthroat business. There's all kinds of work out there. I mean, there's more I talk to gunsmiths all day long from all over the country, and the good ones, they don't even have to have a machine shop. The good ones, Randy is snowed under as much as he wants to be. He turns work away every day because he does what I call quintessential true blue gunsmithing. He is at his bench with files and stones, and he fixes things. And there's just no, that's the beauty of it. And I think what a lot of these people fail to realize is there's many different avenues. You can't do it all in the gunsmithing world. I know people that do strictly Cerakoting. I know people like Randy who just enjoy fixing things. I do repair work, but I do customs, and like I said, I have a full machine shop too. So there's, the way my brain works, I have to do both or I would become quickly bored. So yeah, it's the point is apprenticeships, nobody wants the competition. Nobody wants to put the time into somebody that can put them out of business. I get it. He's in the chat. His name he's a friend of mine out in California. If you go through your chat and you look at Uncle Randy, that's my friend Randy. And I know another Randy too that's a very, very good gunsmith. He does strictly rifles. He's an old guy. He's probably, my God, I think he started gunsmithing in 1964, but that's a whole different story. He's a great guy. So yeah, it's hard, and that's why I think between online courses and the things that I try to do, I think it's a good way to get going, because you can get familiar with gunsmithing and you can get an education that way. The best way to learn is, I'll tell you what I did. Like I said, I did it for nothing for a long time. I'd go to the gun shows and find junk, which is really getting hard to do these days. So you got to go through like Gunbroker or something like that, and just buy old stuff and get to work on it. And you'll learn a lot. You will learn a lot about that. Yeah, that's the best. And that's all I try to do is help people out. I get questions all the time from the Patreon guys. That's another good way. If you're on the Patreon, you can call me a lot, and really anytime. Email me, message me, and if it's a legitimate question, I will get back to you quick, fast, and in a hurry. And if we can't get it figured out, then you can send it in, and we'll get it figured out. That's how you learn. So moving right along, yes, I do have a very big background in machining and mechanical. I spent the majority, I was in the military for a while. Then I got out, and I worked I started out at the GM dealership, turning wrench, and then moved up through the ranks, and actually ended up working in the GM laboratory. Most notable thing that I did for GM was when they had the 6.5 turbo diesel. They had a lot of problems, but one of the big problems outside of the injection pump was the webbing in between 7 and 8 cylinder would crack, and nobody could figure out why. And I was one of 2 guys in the country that went to the laboratory. We had to figure out why, come up with a solution, prove the solution, prove the cause, so before they invested the money into the fix. That's what I did. I also wrote the protocol for MIT's, this was a long time ago. I wrote the shop protocol for MIT's robotics department many years ago. Worked in NASCAR, building performance engines and roll cages and things like that. So yeah, machining has played a pretty heavy part in my life, and now I do prototypes and one-offs. Randy has gotten a share in some of my headaches on that. It's interesting, and but I do one-offs and things like that just to keep my mind exercised, and I do enjoy that, as well as gunsmithing. So yeah, I stay pretty busy. Plus, we have a ranch and train horses, and that's what I do in the morning. And then when it gets hot, I haul butt to the shop and do work or this. So yeah, and I think as a retirement career, that's why I seriously got into gunsmithing as a profession. One thing, people always laugh about my background because one thing that I've done I've done it for the past 15 years really, which has been my main job, is shoeing horses. And that blows a lot of people's minds, and I've had people that go online and they'll be researching a problem with their gun, and they'll come across the channel and they'll be like, "Oh my God, that's my horseshoer," and I'm just a dumb horseshoer. But the reality is, where I'm at, horseshoeing is incredibly a lucrative cash business. When I was younger, I think I averaged anywhere from $3.50 to $4.25 an hour. That's $100, and there's just cash money. There's not many places that you can go and make $350 to $425 an hour cash in a day. Now I'm a little bit older. The heat is really bothers me now, and the 120 degree days when you're down in Austin shoeing horses is miserable. And I just had to draw the line in the sand and say, I gotta get out of this. What am I gonna do? And so this was just a natural progression for me, I guess. I had a very good friend of mine at the horse show one day brought in a very expensive custom AR that he had a lot of trouble with, and yeah, I fixed it for him. It was a stupid simple fix. We did it right there. Scared the hell out of everybody at 8:30 at night at the horse in the middle of a raining horse show. That's what I train, reining and rein cow horses. So we're out at the back of the arena, and we go to function test in his AR, and there was 2 or 10 people that I'm sure they had little brown stains in their drawers after that. It scared the hell out of a lot of people. And I went home and I said, man, why don't I do this for a living? And presented it, my brilliant idea to my wife, who said, I think that's a great idea. And I just about, that's the first. That's the first that it's ever gone like that. So it's been great ever since. Like I said, if you if you focus on not so much, this is just my opinion, and it's probably real poor business advice in the short run, but in the long run, I think you will reap the rewards of this in spades, because I put more focus on quality and getting it done right the first time and being good to my customers than I do chasing the dollar. And there's jobs that I lose money on, and then there's jobs I make it back on. And I think when you always try to do the right thing, you can't go wrong. Just like I said, if the biggest thing with gunsmithing is if you get into unfamiliar territory, how to set that up so that you can learn your order of operations. How do I do this job without screwing it up? And I'll answer that in a minute in a vague way, but yeah. And there's been, like I have guys that come in. In fact, I had a guy come in the other day. He's retired. He was a retired trooper. Then he was the head of the county sheriff's department out where I'm at, and then he retired. Now he has the cafe / gas station in town. My town is very small, and he had an old Arasaka that he inherited, and he brought it in, and it was torn apart. Nobody could figure out how to put it together. Took me about 5 seconds, put it together, gave it back to him, and say, have a great day, man. And to me, it was just the right thing to do. That I'd have done that for anybody that way, because it was just stupid simple, and showed him how to do it. He was happy. I probably get Dr. Pepper there for free for the rest of my life. But that's how you build relationships, and that's how you be successful. I think it's worked for me. I've never advertised anything in my life, and I've done pretty good. What is the best way to learn machining when you're a novice? Well, so this will be posted to YouTube when we finish up, so that you can go back and watch it if you want. And what I'll do is I'll put a link to my other YouTube channel, and that's pretty much what that's going to be about. It's going to be all about machining. I'm going to start with the lathe first, and it'll all be on Patreon. Everything I do goes to Patreon for sure. But the shop is that channel, and that's going to be all about the lathe. We're going to start out with simple tasks. The best way to learn machining is to do it. And a lot, when I started out, as some of you know that I've talked to, a lot of my tools I've made on the mill or the lathe, or I had to sit down by hand and file it out. And that's what that whole channel is going to be about. It's going to be about how to run a lathe. We're going to have all kinds of different little projects. I'll give you an example. Hold on. this right here is a hammer that I made. It's got a brass end or it's got a Delron end that screws on and off. It has a steel head. It has a brass head. And this if you can make this simple hammer, it all unscrews and everything. I hope you can see it. That camera doesn't have it's a very wide lens, so everything's close up. But if you look at what's on this hammer, if you can do this, you can chamber a rifle. It's not that hard. So my point is, everything on that video, everything that I'm going to do on the shop is going to cover a whole lot of machining. Yes, from basically from the like when I got my associates in applied science, we had a whole course in machine shop theory. And that's how to run all your machinery, how to run a surface grinder, how to run a mill, how to run a lathe. How do you do all these? How do you account for tooling offset? How do you just all kinds of things, plus things that I've learned, little cheats, and just things that I've learned from other machinists and stuff that I've figured out on my own. And it's going to get into a lot of cool stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. And that channel's already up. Like I said, I think right now the only thing on it is the series I'm doing on restoring the Sheldon lathe. So if you want to find it right now, what you do is you go into the search bar and you type in Sheldon lathe, and I'll probably be the third one. That channel will be the third one up. Actually, I'll do it right now and I'll tell you. But the name of that channel is called The Shop. The problem is they make it really difficult to be found if you're under 100 subscribers, and it's brand new channel, and not everybody is interested in Sheldon lathes. So unless you're specifically looking for a Sheldon lathe, you're going to have a hard time finding that channel right now. But it's up. And yes, if you type in or Sheldon lathe, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth video down. Part 2 shows up. Actually, that's gotten a lot of views just since this morning. So yeah, that's the new channel is called The Shop, and that's where all that stuff's going to be put on there. And I'm going to do a lot on lathes. The first real video that I do on there will probably get picked up by the YouTube algorithm will be how to speak lathe. In the first episode, we're going to talk about, if you're going to buy a lathe, what kind of lathe do you buy? We have mini lathes, we have bench style lathes, and then we have the big dogs like my big guy that's 3,500 pounds. What do you need to do what? And that way you can have an idea about that. And then we'll get into the basic anatomy of all lathes, and then the fun will start. Because it's hard to explain how to run a lathe if you don't know the parts. And I kind of did that on this channel when I got my Grizzly, but I really want to take that to a whole nother level. So yeah, that's what that's going to be all about. How much has my business grown since I put my shingle out? That's a good question. Short story. Way back when, I did enough to where I could work. Nothing too elaborate. I'd just sit down at the kitchen table and piddle, and then that grew into the very first video that I did was on a Stevens shotgun, and that was in what was my old tool shed, became my little shop for small things. And when I hung my shingle out, that little shop was 14 by 16, I think, and that got blown right out of the water within a week or two. Wow, no, really it did, because everybody and their brother showed up when I first got into this, and then oh, thanks, Craig, I appreciate that. And then I built this shop, and but what I did, I never really intended on getting into the machine side of life. I was going to be a lot like Randy there for a while, and I had a small lathe and I had a small mill drill, and that kept me out of trouble for a long. I have a puppy that just woke up for a long time, and then the project started getting, my work has dictated my growth and what I really wanted to pursue, and so it wasn't very long before I had to. My shop was 16 by 48, but it was pier and beam, and it wouldn't support. That's enough. It wouldn't support like the new lathe. So then I added on the 12 by 16 area with a concrete pad for the big lathe, and I'm adding on to that. That whole area is going to be expanded to 20 by 40, and then I'm done. I'm done building. That's it. And everything's paid for. I'm real big. Anybody that has talked to me on the phone knows I am real big on everything has to pay for itself. There isn't a piece of equipment in here that hasn't done that. It's in fact, I waited a long time to. I did a lot of hand filing to pay for my mill. I could have gotten that a lot sooner, but it has to pay for itself. And so it has grown a lot. It's grown leaps and bounds. There's days where I come in and I think about where I was 6 months ago and now, and it can be very, it's humbling, and it's pretty humbling, really. So it's grown a bunch, and I'm always got irons in the fire. It never ends. I do, like most people know, I do a lot more than what's the matter? I do a lot of gunsmithing, but I do a lot more than just gunsmithing. So I stay pretty busy, and that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give is, don't get yourself in a big bind. I literally grew this out of the kitchen table into a pretty nice shop that's capable of doing a lot of different things. So the sky's the limit, and you can always draw the line in the sand and say, I don't want to get into that part. And I really appreciate that, Craig. That means a lot to me, and that's actually a question I get asked a lot when you speak of mentors. Is who do I draw inspiration from and things like that? And certainly my dad was he was, my dad and I were a lot alike in that we both have backgrounds in engineering, but we never wanted to be geeks or nerds. So we made our career in the real world, utilizing that education. My dad was incredibly smart, very meticulous. He could build or fix anything for real, and that's actually what he did in the military. Was he was that's what he did, is built and worked on the jet engines, specialized and developed ejection systems and things like that. He was a pretty smart guy. Of course, my grandfather, my farmer grandpa, taught me good work ethic. Well, everybody in my family taught me good work ethic, and my papa, my papa, the tool and die guy, I never would have known the impact that spending those early years would have turned into today. I mean, it's very humbling. And then some more modern influences is Gene Shuey. If you're in the AGI program, you know who Gene Shuey is. Gene's a friend of mine, and I've had he invited me out to his shop, and I've got to work with him. That was an awesome experience. Really great guy. He's been just on everything, including Gunsmith, has been a big mentor in a lot of different areas. And there's a lot of other people. You guys inspire me and things. And so I thank you for saying that, Craig. That means a lot, and that's something I don't take lightly, and I really appreciate that. That's the amazing thing about it. It never ceases to amaze me the impact that technology has, because I am always amazed and humbled. It's really overwhelming on that level of the people that reach out and call, or just tonight, to get on here kind of unannounced, and here y'all are, and we're having a conversation, and it's really humbling to me. So I do appreciate those things, and I do. That's why I don't do a lot of videos, but what I try to do well. Which brings me, and then I probably got to wrap this up because I got chores to do. So if any of you have questions, ask them, because I got to get to work before it gets dark. Wow, I think we got a little bit of time. I don't know what time is it? I got about 15-20 minutes left. Yeah, it's a great, that's the thing about gunsmithing, reloading, shooting, hunting. My grandson spends a lot of time in the shop with me. I have great hopes for that kid. He's just a wee lad, all of 3. We've done some serious modifications to he has an electric 4-wheeler, and it was severely underpowered, not a lot of torque, and he'd get out here, it's meant for asphalt driveways, and out here in the country, he gets stuck a lot. And so he was right over here on this bench with me, and we tore that thing down and re-geared it and did some different things with batteries and motors. And now you almost need a car to run him down, but he doesn't get stuck anymore. And that's the best thing about it is I love all of my client. I don't have clients, I have friends. Because that's really how I feel about it. They just get to be friends, and of course family. Anytime you can spend time with your sons or grandkids, that's great. And like I've said before, when you get into the creative thinking aspect of life, I have lots of advice, Jesse, on becoming a gunsmith. Lots and lots of advice. Welcome to the chat. So if you have specific questions, ask them. That's a pretty broad question. I could spend hours and hours on that. Just that one question alone. But getting back to my point, a lot of this stuff, especially when you get into machining and those things, it's a skill set that's fading fast. And I cherish those moments with my grandson. The battery we put in his was a little bit bigger than the DeWalt. That thing will scream, but it's pretty neat. So the Patreon, if you just go to what I'll do is I'll just put a link to that, Craig, in the description. So what you'll have to do is this will post probably tomorrow to the YouTube automatically, so people can go back and watch it. Actually, you know what I can do? This is where Randy is right. If I could make him a moderator, he could do that, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But what I think I can do is, if I do this, and that, there you go. There's the link. You just follow that link that is in the chat, and that'll take you to the Patreon site, and you'll be good. So anyway, that's that. But I have built a few ARs. We watched Dave's video on the 6.5 Grendel for inspiration. That was a good video. You wait until we redo that. I actually have a patent pending on a design that I came up with to be able to true up upper receivers in the lathe, rather than, because we're all familiar with the little tool that you can lap the face of the receiver, which is great, but you don't have any way to actually square up the threads so that they're concentric to the center line of the receiver. And so I have a patent pending on that. I have a few actually, but that's kind of a big one, and I'm really excited about that. And that will be demonstrated at some point in the future on a 223 on the 223 Wild that I've got to build. The only bad thing with that design is you do have to have a lathe. There's probably ways you can adapt it, but really to chase threads accurately, you got to have a lathe to do that. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty simple, and I'm hoping to bring that product to market next year. So we'll see. Anyway, moving along. I love doing gunsmithing for a hobby. Yep, it is a great hobby, and it's a good time to spend with your family. And I think anything that can bring you together and get doing things is great. Jesse, again, if you have more specific questions on becoming a gunsmith, fire away, brother, because I do have to wrap this up here in a little bit. The biggest thing is stay educated. Everything. I do a lot of work outside the gunsmithing industry, which makes me a good gunsmith. I don't have a choice. It forces me. Well, it doesn't really force me because I enjoy it, but some of the stuff that I have to do makes me really pay attention to my operations with how I work on my approach to gunsmithing. So, just always advance your education. I have several videos on books that can get you going. A mindset that I have, they're all on this channel. I don't, but what you can do is if you subscribe and hit the little bell, that will notify you when I do these things. This was kind of spur of the moment, to be honest. The Patreon folks caught wind of that last night and this afternoon, and I need to get better about that. and just being able to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. But I'm going to try to do this more regular, like at least once a month. So I do encourage you to get questions ready. I don't like to sit up here and talk about myself all the time. It gets kind of old. I like fixing stuff. But yeah, I'll try to do that to where you can go in the there's a way to post that on YouTube. I'm working on my FFL license application. Which series do you recommend starting out? Define series. Like as far as doing gunsmith work, I have. Let me go on there and I'll tell you. Give me just a minute. I have so many monitors, it's crazy, and this is why. So I go to my channel, and so I have a series on this YouTube channel that is called Beginning Gunsmithing, and it stands out pretty good. It's got the red, but there's the 7 core principles of a gunsmith, and I think it goes well beyond gunsmithing. Must have books. And that's as far as I've gotten with that. I hope to continue on with that, but those books are great books, and I actually need to do a follow-up on that when you get finished with those more advanced books. And very briefly, the books are Gunsmithing Made Easy by Bryce M. Townsley, Gunsmithing Modern Firearms by Bryce M. Townsley, a couple books by Fred Zeglin, which are excellent books. And hold on a minute and I will give you the list. Professional Gunsmithing. And if you go to that video, the links to all of those books are in the descriptions. So you can get them right there. But it's the Beginning Gunsmithing series, and I actually have to get going on that and keep building on that. But yeah, on the application. I'm sorry, I totally misunderstood your question. But so what I did, and this is where I'm at with that. What I did is I got my 04, which is just your gunsmithing deal, and they're going to come out and tell you a whole spiel on things you can and can't do. And I can tell you the true legalities of that. A lot of it depends on the agent or the interviewer that comes out for you. But I started with the 04 for gunsmithing, and then I put in for my 07 manufacturer because I do a lot. I'm to a point where I do a lot of custom rifles and custom pistols, where it would be kind of nice to have my own kind of, I'll throw my hat in that ring. I have a lot of confidence in my 1911s when you go toe to toe with a Kimber or some other well-known manufacturers. So that's where I'm at. But 04 is a good. What is or maybe it was I can't remember what it was. I thought it was 04, Randy. Maybe I'm misspoken, but I know I just redid mine for 07, which is manufacturing. So that seems to be taking a while to come through. I've been waiting on that for about. Oh, so it is a 01. Yeah, you want your 01. But yeah, 07 is manufacturers, and that pretty much covers everything. You can do all your custom stuff You can build your own rifles and serialize your own things and go that route. If you want, you better have deep pockets. It allows you to sell. If you're big into reloading and you want to sell your own ammunition, you can do it with your 07. I have very strong opinions against that. But yeah, that's where you would go with that. And because really with your when you're just starting out, I think you can the way the law is written, you're 01. The way the law is written, you're allowed to build so many rifles a year. I'm kind of right on that line, so that's, to err on the side of caution, I just went ahead and got my 07. As far as zoning, if you saw where I lived, the only thing that zoning was not an issue for me. I am well outside of city and town limits, but depending on where you live, that can be an issue. If you're in California, or like if you're in Chicago, you're screwed. If you live in the city of Chicago, you're not going to get an FFL. You have to move outside city limits to do it. I know lots of people that have had to do that. So yeah, I totally totally misunderstood your question. Which brings me to my favorite question that I have gotten this week, and if I remember right, this was brought to my email. Yes, Randy, I'm going to answer it. It's not Randy's question. But it is... Oh, here we go. Now I can't find it. Oh, and you know what? It went to my primary because they emailed me directly. Anyway, okay, it is in there. Well, that sucks because now I got to find it. It'll be easier to look on my phone. Anyway, I just wanted to get the guy's name so I could answer it. But his big question was, not Barry. He's on the Patreon. His name is Wayne Young. So Wayne, you can. He asked me what the first thing, which was really a vague question. What was the first thing you did when you got your FFL? Because I got mine and was wondering what you did first. Well, the first thing I did was I put it in a laminated folder and threw it in the desk. I don't know really how to answer that question because there's not really a lot of context. What I can say is the only thing that I did not get into this to be a firearms broker or sell firearms or anything like that. I don't do that. I got into this strictly for gunsmithing. I'll talk to you about insurance here in a minute. But so basically the only thing that nothing really changed because I already had my shop. I'd already been kind of doing this for a long time. Is the only thing that changed was I gave people a bill and they gave me money. So that's all that was it. I mean, I don't know how to answer that. As far as insurance goes, do not call your whoever you have for homeowners insurance. because they are going to be outrageously expensive. And I have to go back and look who I have mine through, but they deal specifically with, their insurance is geared specifically towards gunsmithing, and it's really not bad. It's not anywhere close to that number, Merton. And that's why I don't. It comes out of my account automatically. It's really, in the grand scheme of things, I spend more a week on horse feed than I do on gunsmithing insurance. But I will have to look that up. There is in fact, I had got, yeah, you can go through Gun and Trophy. You can go through Firearms Insurance Agent. There's a bunch, but the one that I ended up going through was the one that Gene Kelly at AGI recommended to me, and I would just have to go dig. I would just have to find my policy and see who it's with. I can't remember. I've never had to use it. The one thing I will say that I learned this year is if you insure your shop, make sure, so the way my shop is set up is on the other side of my main workbench, which is the one you all see me working at most of the time. Right on the other side of that wall is my house. It's the kitchen. So the shop is literally built off the side of the house. And we got hit, for those of you that don't know, we got hit with a tornado a couple months ago now. And what I found out is my homeowner's insurance, or the insurance that I had put on my shop, my insurance company, they came in. When I called, I said, hey, I need to put insurance on my shop. And they said, yeah, no problem. And so I thought it was insured. And then when they came to do the estimate to get it fixed, they came in and saw everything I had. And they were like, what exactly do you do in here? And I said, well, this is my machine shop. And so basically they saw the equipment I had and figured out pretty quick that this was a commercial operation. And my insurance company doesn't cover any type of commercial applications, vehicle or anything. And so that was a big shocker, and that was a big pill to have to swallow. Because that's pretty much what happened, is everything that I had set up to do the addition went into half-ass fixing the shop, so I wouldn't lose any more equipment than I have. So yeah, that's the skinny on insurance. Just, when you get into insurance, yeah, there's companies out there that deal specifically with insurance for gunsmiths, and that's the cheapest way to go. And I will do my diligence, and I'll find a good one for you. And then when you actually insure your shop for damages, property damages and things like that, make sure they cover commercial, because man, I almost lost my surface grinder. The DRO on my mill got cooked, which those for a good DRO, those are expensive. The DRO on my lathe got cooked. I basically had to do a ground up restoration on my surface grinder, because those are expensive. And the grinder that I have is kind of a rare bird that does a couple different things, and you just can't get them. So that's my advice on insurance. So I guess if that's it, guys, I hope hopefully we can do this again. For sure next month. I may try to do it again this month. but we're going to try to do the live thing a little bit more often on the Gunworks channel. And I haven't stopped making videos. They're just on Patreon. I've got everybody I talk to knows how I feel about editing. I can't stand editing. I hate to edit video. It takes forever. The more you do, the quicker it goes, I guess. But it still takes a lot. But there's a bunch of stuff on there that I have to edit down to meet YouTube standards, and then it'll go on the DH channel. And that's why I started the shop. Which actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'll put the link to the new channel, and that's going to be all about just that, just what it says, the shop. It's just going to be shop stuff. I'm really excited about it. It's going to have all the machining stuff. It's going to have all of the things that you can do if you got downtime. I enjoy the things people don't know about me. I really enjoy, once upon a time I did cabinet making. I worked for what the hell was that? Dana Robes Furniture up in Grafton, New Hampshire. It's a shaker. We specialized in shaker style furniture, and one thing that I love doing is taking shaker style furniture and modernizing it a little bit. So we get into that, and just things you can do during the downtime to make money. Yeah, we're a little late, but I've got some good last minute questions that I'll go ahead and answer while I try to find the link to my channel, the new channel. So I hate navigating all this stuff. Oh, I know what I can do. I just do this. But anyway, my thoughts on Precision Matthews. That's what my mill is. My mill is a Precision Matthews mill. It's the PM 932M. I have it completely decked out. I like it. It's a pretty darn good mill. I've used several of their lathes, their bigger lathes, and they're good. If you compare apples to apples, there's another, and actually I'm glad you kept me going because I got a couple things to announce. There's a couple channels out there that go hog wild over the Precision Matthews lathes, and they have some good points. But what I ended up going when it came right down to it, and with what I'm doing, is if you take their biggest Precision Matthews biggest lathe that they make, and then you add 1,000 pounds to that, and that's what my jet is. There's not much I can't do on that as long as will fit in a 40-inch on center lathe. Whoops. No, I don't want to do that. But here, hold on a minute. I'm trying to do something here, and it's not cooperating. There we go. But they make good stuff. I think I think Grizzly lathes are just as comparable, and they're half the cost. It's just a lot of people get high on that, and it's funny. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something about that. This is the big announcement. And I know Gavin, and I know Fred. I know Fred personally, and they did a video the other day on budget builds, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth because so I just put the link up. I just put the yes, I did, Fernando, kinda, but I just put the link up to the new YouTube channel. So yeah, they do a budget build, and they do a 350 Legend converted to 300 Blackout, which makes not a lot of sense to me. And I could just go on and on about that for another hour. I mean, unless you just want a zombie apocalypse gun, it just didn't make a lot of sense. And they presented it in a way that this was a budget build for gunsmiths just starting out. Yet they used the Precision Matthews 1440 GT, which is a $12,000 lathe, and they used the Trubor alignment system, which I am very familiar with, and I'll probably do a whole video on that. But to outfit yourself with that piece of equipment, you're coming in just shy of $3,000, and so what I have in my shop, I think you can't really see it, but what I have in my shop that I just acquired, it came in to get fixed, and the guy didn't want to put the money into it, and so I got a really good deal on a South Bend 10L Tool Room Precision, and that thing is wore out. I mean, it's got what did it have, Randy, when I showed you the video? 25-30 thousandths backlash in the compound and in the cross slide. I mean, I can literally take the apron and just push it, or take the saddle and just push it back and forth. And I did a mock run on a 40 thousandths run out. I did a trial run on a 6.5 by 284 Norma in between centers on this old wore out lathe, using a lathe dog to guide if you can, there's probably not a way for you to link that video, is there, Randy? Because I sent that to him. I did it very old school, between centers, in the steady, using a lathe dog as my and the live center as my floating reamer holder, and I got that thing to within 3/10,000ths, and I guarantee you that thing shoots less than half-inch groups. So, the big announcement, and I hope to post that video soon. It's just we've had a lot of wind recently, so I haven't been able to get out to shoot it. The big announcement, and then I really do gotta fly, is that, and this is something I've thought about doing for quite a while, and that just really kind of forced my hand. Okay, well, next time I'll figure out how to make you a moderator, and then you can. But anyway, what that inspired me to do is I did a lot of research on like the worst rifle the worst rifle you can buy. And so up on the shelf, I haven't even opened the box. Up on the shelf, I have a Mossberg Patriot chambered in 30-06. And I'll tell you why, and it complete with a scope. Paid $325 for that. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go up to my little 100-yard range one morning or evening when I don't have 20-mile-an-hour winds. We're going to unbox that mule kicker, and we're going to shoot it. And we're going to see if I hope the accuracy is as great as what they show on the videos, because when that first came out, everybody talked about how great the accuracy was on this, but nobody showed groups. And I came across 3 videos that actually showed the grouping on this, and you're lucky if you can get 3 rounds in a 10-inch plate. And so I thought, that's the rifle I want. And I want it in 30-06 because I think one thing as a gunsmith that you're going to be faced with more often than not is, this is going to sound bad, but don't take it that way. Well, I'll say it this way. People that haven't grown up hunting, they go to the discount sporting goods store, they see the $300 or $250 rifle, and they say that's what I want, and it's usually a 30-06 or a 7 mil or something like that. They go home, they shoot the damn thing, they pick their shoulder up off the ground, and they say, my God, that hurt. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing up to the range right out of the box. You all going to get to see me unbox it. I ain't going to dink donk around it. The only thing that I'm going to do is fire one shot, so when I put a camera down range to look at the target, I make sure it's not going to wipe out my camera. And we're going to see how it groups. And then we're actually going to go back to the shop, and we're going to do some good old-fashioned gunsmithing, and we're going to tear this thing down and see how we can improve the accuracy. We're going to troubleshoot accuracy issues with that rifle. And then from there, I have some pretty strong opinions on this, and I'll present that when we go through it. From there, we're going to rechamber it in a budget way, in a realistic way. And the realistic way is Joe Blow down the road comes into your shop with a 30-06 that he's fearful to shoot this thing, and he says, what can we do to reduce recoil? 25-06 or 270. And I really thought long and hard about that, and I thought the 270 would make a heck of a lot of sense because it's a pretty common round, it's a very popular round. But the 25-06 is really an underrated, underappreciated round. And so we're going to go through that operation, and basically I'm going to carry this platform. I'm going to go into truly uncharted territory with this little Mossberg. This is out of my own pocket to see what we can squeeze out of this, because right after that, as long as it hasn't blown up and we're grouping good, as long as the action is sound, we're probably going to go full-blown like PRS style. And one thing I want to talk about, like you talk about Gavin did a 6-dasher build on a short action, and if you remember, and I know for a fact he was all over the forums trying to figure out feeding issues. Well, there's short action cartridges that are really designed for long actions. The 6.5 by 284 Norma is one of them. The 6-dasher is one of them. And the reason is you can get those really heavy bullets that are usually very, very long. And when you utilize that case and when you utilize that case and that bullet to its potential, unless you're doing single feed load, it's not going to work through a magazine. Enter the long action for a short action. Enter the long action for a short action round. And so I'm really excited about that. I've never been so excited to own such a cheap rifle. But in the same sense, I think it would really, that's a good test, and it's a good test of ability. It's what I think gunsmithing is taking good platforms and making them better, taking platforms that aren't so good and making them really do something. So that's what we're going to do, and be practical about it, not just because, well, I want to, having a real world basis to do this build on, and we're going to do it on an old wore out lathe. So it's just this is going to take a long time to do, because there's just, there is still a wait. Like, I'm pretty sure I have to go look at I have to spec my reamer out. I think my 25-06 reamer is pretty worn out. And I don't think I have another interesting one that would be, which, boy, that'll stop a charging bull in its tracks, is the 25-06 Ackley Improved. So if y'all have any thoughts on just a straight up 25-06 or the 25-06 Ackley improved, let me know. But I will talk about, the different choices on barrels that you can do that make sense to reduce recoil and still bring a lot of accuracy, especially for hunting, in mind, because that is a real world situation. And then we're just going to go and we're going to run with it. We're going to see what this thing can really do. And I knew you was going to say Ackley. That is a devastating round. It is an outstanding round. And we'll one thing that I don't get into very much is reloading and bullet history and things like that, but I will for that. And I probably need to on some of these more intricate builds like what we're going to do with this, but I'm really excited about that. I'm going to try to keep it as real as possible. I think when you first start out with gunsmithing and you're looking at lathes, ultimately you're going to end up with an older lathe like an Atlas or a South Bend or a Sheldon or an old Clausing or a something like that, and it's not going to be perfect. And we're going to go through it all step by step. That'll be fun. Now the caveat is a lot of the detail work on that, unfortunately, will only be available on Patreon. And I think that will go somewhere in the AGI deal or GCA deal. We're working that out. But there'll be a lot of good contents on this too to follow along. But the other reason I picked the Patriot is it's really nobody's done it. You're not going to go out there on YouTube or anywhere and find anybody that has taken on a Mossberg Patriot. Whether there's a reason for that or not, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And it's funny because one of the very first jobs that I had when I opened my doors professionally to the public, I did a factory accurizing job for a guy, and he was tickled to death with that, and he came back with a 22-250, and he said, I want to make this a PRS rifle. And the trick on that was it was a Browning A-bolt. And you go out there and you talk to gunsmiths about working on Browning A-bolts, and nobody does it. Nobody does it. The reason they don't is all of your parts you have to fabricate. You have to make them. There's no aftermarket parts for a Browning A-bolt. The other big caveat is they use fine threads on the barrel tenon. And a lot of times when you spin that off, which is exactly what happened, you spun the threads right out of it. They are on there incredibly tight. And I learned to have a lot of confidence in cutting fine threads on that. That rifle taught me a bunch, and it taught me not to be afraid. It's the same thing, just different platform. You just have to figure out its secrets. And so I think everybody does everything like you mentioned Gavin. Everything he does is on a fancy action. It's a bad action. Those are $2,500. I think maybe he's done one on a true Remington 700 factory action. I can't remember what he did to it, but that's where the gunsmithing comes in, is on the factory stuff. And it's really not that hard to cut a 10-inch chamber and make it fit in action. And in fact, while we're on the subject, there's a big difference between getting a print from bad action on a chamber dimension and their action dimension versus true blueprinting. True blueprinting is you blueprint those parts that are in front of you, because there is always stackable tolerance. When you buy a bad action, their print is going to have a number, and the reality is you could be plus or minus a thou or 3 in that action. And a true blueprint job is you sit down and you blueprint that action. You actually draw up a blueprint. That's how you go about that, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring a real world situation with a real lathe that most people are going to start out with, and I kind of have high hopes for it. We'll see, and then maybe if it shoots, once we go through all of the conversion, I may have to rebuild that lathe and do the PRS style build on that, because I do want to do it on the older lathe just to show that it can be done. It's not the machinist. It is not the machine that makes the machinist. It's the machinist that makes the machine, and that was taught to me very early on, and it's been proven to me time and time again. You can have the best lathe in the world, if you don't understand its intricacies and all the natures involved in doing something precision, it's not going to matter. I mean, all the high-tech gear in the world, if you can't get half-inch or better groups out of it, you either have to question, you got to question your skill set. I've seen a lot of really cool things done on some pretty wore-out lathes over the years. But yeah, that's what I think. I think it is. It's going to be a wonderful. I'm really excited about doing this because it's never been done. We're going into uncharted territory. I'm going to learn just as much as you, and so it'll be a lot of fun. So other than that, guys, I'm going to go through a couple comments that came in. Fernando, hi Dave, did you expand to a new shop? Nope, same old shop, just always adding on. And then moving from my first job to my second job, I'm so happy to decided to go. I look forward to your content in the future, and I love being able to support you on Patreon. Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate that, and I really do appreciate I really do appreciate everybody on Patreon. I probably don't get on there and tell you all that enough, but I do. There's a lot of time that goes into those videos, and I'm hoping that can grow to where you guys can start saying, hey, can we do this? And that's what'll pay for these specialized projects. Someday, that's kind of the goal, is continued education, where we can take something that's never been done and do it, and whether it comes out successful or not will remain to be seen, but we did it, and now we know. And that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, in my opinion. Knowledge is me saying it can't be done. Wisdom is knowing why it can't be done, and that's what I'm all about. Always pushing the limits. And I really don't know about the best gunsmith. There's some pretty good ones up there. There's some good ones on YouTube. There's one that I talk to quite a bit, and he's a really good guy. He's in the same boat, and that's Randy Selby. He's a good old timer that's been doing. He's great. I might be good, but he is great. But anyway, I appreciate you all showing up. I really do have to get out there, and I'm going to have horses tearing down the barn if I don't get out there and get chores done. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, dhgunworks@gmail.com, or if you're on Patreon, y'all know how to get a hold of me. And be thinking of questions for the next live cast. I'm hoping, I may try to get another one in this month, but I'm really gonna, I said that last month, we're gonna do at least one of these a month. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your lives to spend it with me and listen to me ramble on. it's awesome. So thanks a bunch, guys. I really do appreciate y'all.